Enfold Proactive Health Trust, Creating Safe Spaces, presents Demystifying Sexuality, a video series. How to be inclusive and affirming of sexual and gender diversity. Presented by Ms. Neeraja Sajan, Intersex Studies Scholar, Member, Intersex Human Rights India, IHRI. Ms. Sana Suman, Transgender Rights Activist. Dr. Pragati Singh, Founder, Indian ACES. Ms. Shakti Shri Maya, Intersex Activist, Intersex Human Rights India, IHRI Member.
Imagine that you're walking down the street and you see someone coming towards you from a distance. As they draw nearer, you realize you don't recognize that person. But if you notice, you would have already registered, understood, or assumed at least parts of that person's identity. For example, you might have recognized that person's gender identity as being a man or a woman. You might have done so based on their clothes, cultural or religious symbols, and your interpretation of those symbols based on the collective knowledge you have as being part of a society. We do this recognition, or we recognize people as such because we, as a society, share the idea of who or what a man and a woman is. While this collective knowledge is very useful, it is not always accurate. For example, in this case, contrary to popular understanding, the gender identity of a person is not limited to the binary of man or woman. The same way, a person's sexual orientation is not limited to heterosexuality. Hi, I am Neeraja, and today we are going to look at the diverse identities of gender, sex, and sexual orientation, and how differently these identities and experiences are of people in our world. First, we need to look at gender and sex. Sex and gender are not synonymous, nor are they binary. Sex refers to a person's biological identity, and gender refers to a person's social identity. For example, words like male, female, intersex are used to refer to a person's sex identity. Words such as man, woman, girl, boy, transgender are used to refer to a person's gender identity. Sociologically, gender refers to the socially constructed set of roles, behavior, or attitudes, and gender identity refers to a person's self-identity as to belonging to a particular gender. Sex is not limited to the binary of female or male. Sex is a spectrum, and there are many intersex variations based on the sex characteristics that person is born with. An intersex person is a person born with sex characteristics atypical of female or male sex.
The intersex variation might be apparent at the time of birth or later in life. The variations are of different sex characteristics, such as sex chromosomes, sex hormones, external genitalia, internal organs, gonads, and secondary sex characteristics.
Now let's look at how gender and sex works together in our society. One of the first questions that you ask when a baby is born is whether the baby is a boy or a girl. That is, we are talking about the child's gender based on the external genitalia of the child. So the gender identity of the child is assumed. Many people grow up to identify with the gender assigned to them based on their sex at the time of birth. Such people are called cisgender people. So if the person also grows up to be heterosexual, then there seems to be no need to talk about diverse identities or based on gender, sex, or sexual orientation. But what if they are not? What if the child does not grow up to identify with the gender assigned to them or grow up to be not heterosexual? What happens then? Let me explain with 3 examples. In the first example, based on the external genitalia of the child is assigned to be masculine. That is, the child is deemed as a boy and is being brought up as one. The child is now around 5 years old, and the child loves dressing up in his mother's clothes. Everybody around the child finds it amusing, adorable, takes pictures, and even encourages the child to do that. And one day tells everybody, I am not a boy. Do not call me he. I am a she. The second example, the child based on external genitalia again is deemed to be a girl, is brought up as one, and now the child has grown up to become widely considered as a successful working woman. One day, she comes to her family and tells them that she has found the perfect person for her, but they cannot get married. Then she told her family that they cannot get married because it is not yet legal in our country, because the person she is in love with is a woman. The third situation is this: the child is born hale and hearty, but when the question is posed about the gender of the child, the usual, is it a boy or a girl, nobody is able to answer that because the child is intersex. Let's take a look at the first example. Transgender people do not identify with the gender assigned to them at the time of birth. If they identify with masculine gender, they are known as trans men. And if they identify with feminine gender, they are known as transgender women. So is that it? Gender identity is man, woman, and transgender person? No. Gender identity is a spectrum which is made up of different identities, including but not limited to transgender identity. Transgender identity itself is not limited to trans men and trans women, but is an umbrella term for different identities that come under transgender identity. Some people do not identify with any gender, and their gender identity is being agender. Regrettably, in most societies, even today, the only gender identities that are recognized and accepted is that of man and woman, and everybody else is discriminated or shunned. This causes a lot of misunderstanding and stigma around non binary identities. People can express their identity in as many ways as there are people. Some gender non-conforming person might prefer going for a gender affirming surgery. Some might choose only to go for hormone therapy and not any other procedure. Some might choose not to undergo any medical procedure per se. Here, while talking about anyone being able to be a gender non-conforming person, we really need to talk about and understand gender incongruence or gender dysphoria.
Hi, my name is Sana Suman. I'm a transsexual woman and I'm a student of MA Journalism, and I am a social activist working for welfare of transgender community. I born as a boy baby child to my biological family, father and mother. At the age of 5, my mother used to tell me play with cricket and football, not with Bobby doll. Bobby doll was given to my sister because this toy is for girl children. But I was attracted towards the girl children's toy, which is Bobby doll. I had expressed my feelings many times to my own parents by grooming myself, wearing lipstick, wearing a nail polish, and being feminine, which my own parents failed to understand my feminine character. My sister was very supportive because she used to help me to play with Bobby doll and to groom myself. So she became one of my favorite among my family because she supported me. In the school, I was very clever student and my teacher made me to sit in second bench. But my own classmates used to tease me, harass me and bully me because of my feminine character. I was not happy going school because I was getting tortured by my own classmates. And I brought this notice to my teacher, where my teacher failed to understand my feminine character. And rather she advised me to behave like a bold and gentle person of a boy child. But I am not a boy child, as I don't know how to express and explain my own parents and my teacher. Because I really take this opportunity that the teachers should really understand the child's behavior, which is feminine or masculine, and to come along with them and support them with their characters rather judging or to advice given to the child. Support with their feelings, travel with their feelings and with their characters. And I had brought this to many of my own teachers because I had lost my confidence because they didn't supported me. Rather, they were laughing at me and they don't know anything about the transgender community's existence. in the society. This is the one of the main issue where we are lacking on awareness on the transgender community in the society. But within my family, my uncle also tried to harass me asexually. But I was traumatized and I couldn't explain this issue to my own family because I had lost my confidence to share my feelings with my family because they are overtly explaining me not to behave like a girl. I would also tell this time that please support my own community and to encourage them to be as how they are, not to modify them, not to correct them, correct in a way that how they want to live and support with their feminine characters.
Gender expression, and it is part of a person's gender identity. We have very strict rules, though albeit informal rules in our society based on gender, who gets to do what. But it is us as a society who deem it to be weird or odd or not acceptable. The best example for this is the kilt, a traditional Scottish dress worn traditionally by cisgender men. While this is considered tradition and acceptable, in most other places, it would be considered inappropriate for a man to wear a skirt type garment. What we need to do is remember that we as a society has a general idea of what gender is. But what we also should remember is that we cannot put a person's identity into a defined box and try to put people into those boxes. For example, if a woman who self identifies as a girl or a woman prefers wearing men's clothing or participate in activities or undertake activities that are generally pursued by those of masculine gender, it does not mean that this woman is transgender. It just means that she, a woman, does not mirror what the society's idea of a woman should be. Such stereotyping affects all genders, including masculine gender or men. But when the person or people in question are of non binary gender identities, then the discrimination becomes manifold. Let's take a look at the second example. The woman says that she is in a relationship with another woman. Women who are attracted only to other women call themselves as lesbian women. Men who are attracted to only other men call themselves gay men. There are people who are attracted both to men and women, and their sexual orientation is known as bisexual orientation. Yet others' attraction to others are not limited to any gender. That is, they're attracted to persons of all sex and gender, and they are known as pansexual people. Some people do not form a sexual attraction to anybody, and they are known as asexual people. Just because asexual people are not sexually attracted to anyone does not mean that they cannot be emotionally attracted to others. They do, and based on such attraction, they form relationships as well. Now, I welcome Dr. Pragati Singh to tell us more about asexuality. Welcome, Dr. Pragati.
If you try to think of all the sexual orientations that you might have heard of, there's a good chance that you might miss a few. One of these is asexuality. Asexuality is defined as the sexual orientation characterized by sexual attraction towards no one, regardless of their gender. And logically, if it's possible to feel sexual attraction towards one gender or two genders or many but not some, then it's also possible that someone might not feel it towards anyone. And that's all that asexuality is. Since 2014, I've been running Indian ACEs, South Asia's first initiative towards the cause of asexuality and non-sexuality. And yes, these two are different concepts. While the former refers to a lack of sexual attraction, the latter refers to a lack of sexual engagement. The challenges faced by the community are many. In the gross underrepresentation of asexual identities across media and all other platforms, most asexual people struggle throughout their adolescence to identify, recognize, come to terms with, and accept their orientation. And in a fast paced dating culture, which is pretty much preoccupied with the idea of sex, most of these people struggle to buy the time required to form deep connections, especially in the lack of sexual attraction or sexual engagement. Understandably, the burden of marriage and childbirth can feel like a huge burden, so much so that it drives many community members into the pits of mental ill health. Remember that marital rape is not even considered as a crime in our law, and arranged marriages are the norm. I have received hundreds of messages and emails from young people trying to run away from their homes, traumatized by their future prospects, people deep in depression and feeling suicidal. All of this can take a huge toll on anyone's psyche, leaving them feeling damaged, broken, and inadequate. So, what is it that you can do to support the community, you ask? I'm going to give you 5 pointers. 1. Allow people the space and time to explore and define their own identity. Resist the temptation to fit them into a box or to expect certain assumed behaviors. 2. Challenge the idea that sex is the only way for everyone to feel empowered and liberated. 3. Read up about asexuality and make sure you tell your friends as well. 4. Internalize the fact that sex is not the only way to sustain dating, relationships, and intimacy. And 5. Make sure you encourage your peers and your colleagues to use the abbreviation LGBTQIA+ instead of LGBT or LGBTI. Be a part of the change. Thank you.
Let's take a look at the gender identity and sexual orientation of a person in a relative manner. Many transgender women face questions such as, are you sure you're transgender? Maybe you're a man who are attracted to other women on a regular basis. No. Just because it's not what we have been taught socially or something that we might not have seen before, it does not make it any less true. I certainly wouldn't want anybody else telling me who I am or who I should be. But sadly, many people with gender non-conforming identities or other sexual orientations other than heterosexuality often face questions like this in everyday life, face discrimination and questions for just being who they are. Nobody is able to answer the question whether the child is a boy or a girl because the assigning of gender is based on the external genitalia of the child and the sex of the child is not clear in the scenario. That is, the sex of the child is not clear as to whether it's male or female. It is intersex. And here a social crisis rises. For example, the parents are in a dilemma as to what to tell others, what to tell other family, what to name the child, how to bring up the child. Often these questions drive the parents to choose a sex for the child and assign a gender based on that. They approach doctors who are also brought up in the binary society, who carry out medically unnecessary interventions on the intersex child to fix their sex. This is in fact called as intersex genital mutilation and condemned by intersex people and human rights activists around the world. No medical intervention should be carried out on the child unless there is a threat to the life of the child. No medical intervention should be carried out on intersex adults as well without their express wish and informed consent. In the matter of intersex children, let them grow up and tell us who they are. Let them go through socialization and identify themselves to any gender or their sex identity and let them tell us who they are. And then, if the child needs it, we can give whatever assistance they need to lead a good life. It is possible to bring up children in a gender-neutral way. Parents around the world of intersex children are doing that. Now, I welcome Shakti Sri Maya, an intersex activist.
Generally, society talk about male and female sex, man and woman genders. But there is another sex identity known as intersex. There are different types of intersex variations. Intersex persons can identify with any gender as a non-intersex person. I am not going to go into much detail about intersex variations itself. Neeraja has explained about that in detail already. Here, I would like to talk about certain things that as an intersex person. I wish others knew that we require or need in and from the society. Most importantly, as an intersex person, I want to be identified officially as an intersex person, not as transgender person. As being transgender is a gender identity, and my gender identity is that I'm a woman. Intersex and transgender identities are not same, and it has no correlation. That is, being transgender does not make one an intersex person, and by being intersex does not automatically mean we are transgender. Each person identifies their gender identity. Also, medical professionals have to be given the latest information and training to deal with any health related issues for any intersex person, as the advances in the related fields are not known to many, which causes problem for intersex people. As an intersex person, I had to deal with morbid curiosity, even outright questions about my genitalia. On the other hand, many people come to me with sympathy. It is not a sympathy we need, but empathy. Intersex individuals do not come out openly because of the society, prejudice, discrimination, and violence directed towards us in the society. Together, we can bring a change by creating awareness and sensitizing our society, starting from our own family and social circles. Let's work together to make our world a better place for all of us to live.
Some non-conforming identities such as gay men, lesbian women, transgender people are now much more visible and more known in our society thanks to media and other factors. But lesser known identities such as pansexual identity or intersex identity, people belonging to these identities might not know that they are part of a larger group, might believe that they're the only such person with such identity in the world, which can lead to very harmful and drastic psychological isolation. An isolation that can be easily prevented by creating awareness in our society. Cisgender, heterosexual people can work towards equipping yourself to becoming better supporters and also being accepted as an ally by the LGBTQI community in your region or around the world. If you are cishet and someone comes to you and confides you about non-conforming identity, even if you do not understand, let them know that they are accepted and respected. Even if you do not know anyone with diverse identity, learn more so that you can start creating awareness in your own social circles and society. The language that we use is extremely gendered, and it can become problematic while we are speaking to a person of non-conforming identity. For example, if you notice, we often use words such as guys to refer to a group of mixed gender. Instead, we can use words like people, folks, or friends to refer to groups that have people with different gender identities. We should also become aware that some insults or jokes that we use commonly are made at the expense of people with gender and sexual non-conforming identities. We should become aware of it, avoid using it, and also advocate against the use of such jokes or insults. Some people with a non-conforming identity might refer to themselves as queer. But as a whole, the community of people with diverse identities of sex, gender, and sexual orientation refer to themselves as belonging to one diverse group known as LGBTQIA+. It stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex, asexual, and the plus sign stands for the inclusion of people of all other diverse identities. The Q stands for queer. Standards are made by humans, and we use these standards to measure each other, to pass or fail each other, or accept or reject each other. It is high time that we started questioning these standards. Who made these? For what purpose? What role does it play in our lives? Diversity is the norm in nature. Can we remember that? It is diversity that strengthens us. Instead of letting our differences divide, reject, can we accept appreciate, acknowledge, and celebrate our differences. It is our differences that make our lives more colorful, which is so aptly encompassed in the rainbow color symbolizing the LGBTQI plus community. Each one of us is a unique person and deserving of equal dignity, care, and belonging. Let us be united in our diversity. Thank you.
This video is part of a series of videos and learning content aimed at addressing gender-based violence. These videos provide practitioner perspectives by professionals and experts in the field. We hope these videos generate further discussions with peers, family members, and teachers, encourage curiosity, and seed further research ideas in these domains. We gratefully acknowledge the following for their support: Gaurav Krishna, Keshav Rajendran, Ishwar Shankar, Mohan Ram, Clockwork Captions, Enfold Consultants, Ford Foundation. The copyright and other intellectual property rights in respect of this video belong exclusively to Enfold Proactive Health Trust, Enfold. Enfold licenses this video under the terms of Creative Commons License CC BY-NC-ND 4.0, the details of which can be found at https://creativecommonslicense.org/licenses/by-NC-ND/4.0/. Any use or reproduction of this video contrary to or in violation of the terms of the aforesaid Creative Commons license will be illegal, and Enfold reserves the right to take suitable action in respect thereof. Enfold also reserves the right to modify, terminate, or revoke the license granted as aforesaid, or otherwise exercise any and all rights in respect of its intellectual property without further notice, and the same shall be binding on the licensee or user or reader thereof. June 2021. Enfold Proactive Health Trust. www.enfoldindia.org. Contact info@enfoldindia.org. +91 99 000 94251. www.enfoldindia.org.